We are told in order to heal, we must forgive. This is not exactly true. They need forgiveness. You need to realize what was done to you was not from malice. They were damaged before they ever met you. And that's the key to realizing this is not about disowning the past, just placing it where it belongs. They had a choice, just as you do. If you choose to focus on the past as they did, you will not progress beyond the lowest levels. Your creativity will suffer. Your free will get lost. Bits and pieces are all around us, but many only repeat the words without understanding what it truly means. 1. You can only change yourself. True. How is this done? That's the key. There are rules we all live by. Some imposed on us by society, family, others. Some of them are not helpful. Some of them we place on our own self in order to cope with events that happened in the past. These are the things that you can change. It's called learned behavior. The past can teach, but what can it teach? Well, what can you change? Yourself. Since all you can change is yourself, assigning whose blame is greater hardly helps. That is the trap we all fall into. It's the rule that is imposed early on. With each rule, your soul is hidden behind an illusion. The mind must attempt to compensate while you are living in the past. It must also deal with the future. 2 outcomes will ensue towards the end of life. 1, the mind can't cope. It shuts down. The soul, having no idea, will be all alone, with no one to talk to. It can only wait until finally the body shuts down, and with it, the soul will eventually leave. 2, the soul gives up. It's attempting to make sense of what it sees, has given too much to the mind that it's too lost in illusion. In frustration, it gives up, no longer giving the mind direction. The mind is aimless, waiting in vain for its partner. Then eventually the mind succumbs, and finally the body. And of course, if the body goes first, they go quickly. So, the first is the predator soul. His fate. Second, the professional victim's fate. Nature abhors a vacuum. Isn't it true that a black hole sucks everything in? These are the people most successful on Earth and the most damaged. We hate them for what they did, but the damage to themselves is far worse with each mistake. Rules are strengthened. The damage inflicted on them has them playing the role the abuser told them they should play. The soul knows this is wrong, but has nothing to prove against it. It is seeking the answer in mind's domain, forcing the mind to manage both the past and attempt to adapt to the future. It can only use society to create the body it must inhabit, and blind followers that will act as its mind, fulfilling the functions to keep society functioning based on its needs. They should be seen with pity. They sow the seeds of their own fate. A soul must progress. Both will discover their creativity abandons them. Their free will, a trap. They have an excuse to blame all they do on another. All they've done is played the role the abuser assigned them. What they are doing is damaging themselves, even though it seems they are thriving. This is the role you will assign yourself if you will not realize. Good or bad are human concepts. There has always been just a lesson. You have the effect. What you need is the cause. That is not within them. If they had creativity, they could find that and never have hurt you in the first place. They focused on blame, and you can too. What was done to you was bad. It would be worse if you continued to live up to their expectations. 2. Let them own the past. You own the future. Nice words, but what do they mean? It's been muddied. Two things happen, and both are false. It is a twist because society has imposed on us the need to assign blame. I would suggest this. If you are broken, they insist they were right, even though you're only broken because of their failure. However, if you succeed and overcome what they did, they will then insist they had a role to play in your success. This creates a counterbalance in you. If you get better, you're rewarding them. If you are unhappy, you're making them happy. A no-win scenario. If your goal is revenge, you're making them own what they did. In short, living in mind's domain, the past. Now, flip this around. You are the only one that needs to know the truth. The people that matter to you will know you and see both sides. Most important, the damage they are doing to themselves is already severe. You can't help them. You never mattered to them enough to even think of what they were doing to you. They need the illusion. The question is, do you? The only one that must live this illusion is them. You can choose because the rule can be challenged. The insanity ended. You have that power. Creativity is the key. We all have it. It's an aspect of soul. You can make a leap. You have free will. You must surrender that to their illusion or using creativity choose the future. All of this is within your grasp if you just disown the illusion. Let them own the past. 3. There are 3 choices. Abuser and victim both live in the past. Survivor lives in the future. This is too simple for me. Intent must matter. If it's just the 3, then 1 is bad, 1 damaged, and 1 good. Using this argument, one must believe in a natural narcissist. What we create would be the closest you can get to a natural narcissist. What the Creator creates is us. We do not have a narcissistic nature. We are entrained through learned behavior to act narcissistic in coping behavior. If you have a soul, you can't be a narcissist. These rules were imposed upon you to cope with life events or people that come into your life. It must be a spectrum, elastic, and the 3 only marks on a ruler to judge how far you progressed. We tend to assign ourselves a role and then cast another in the role of the abuser. And this hardly helps you undo the damage. I prefer a broader view of victim, and I suggest abuser should be predator. They didn't hurt you out of malice. It was indifference. They're living in the past. Someone damaged them, and they live in the past, stuck between predator and victim. The only possibilities the past can offer. As for the broader view of the victim, this is because there is no survivor. This implies a balanced soul, something society must believe in, since we tell predators they can be forgiven with words and a sacrifice of things that they never valued anyway. For them to believe in this, you must believe the damage is repairable. It is not. You will always carry the scars. You don't have to own them, but you must learn coping behavior to compensate for the rules that you will always fight against. Own your future. Allow them to own what they did. Don't fall into the illusion that is damaging them even more today than anyone that hurt them ever did. 4. You must forgive yourself. Learn behavior. Rules imposed or created by you to replace rules imposed on you. I call it the spectrum of behavior. Predator, professional victim, broken soul, strong soul, balanced soul. That's the spectrum that I would suggest. And based on learned behavior, they are still arbitrary. Avoid assigning blame on another. just as you were damaged, so were they. The predator chose a path to hurt others before they could be hurt again. The rules are stricter. The stranglehold on the soul allows them to act in ways that damage others. They seek control, something only the mind would do if the soul has surrendered to the pain. The extreme victim has less rules, but the most important is it's okay to harm others for selfish reasons. If you can make it sound like you're doing it to help others, even if they realize they were wrong, then they must be watchful that in the zeal to get forgiveness, they don't damage the victim searching for forgiveness. As I said, you can't be fixed. An extreme victim or reformed predator must believe you can. They will blame you if you're not able to, because you still don't matter to them. They learn nothing, just a new coping skill to hide behind. Predator must come first, even if the individual isn't. This is learned behavior. Someone hurt you. The intent hardly matters. But intent does matter to the person that hurts you. That's what the spectrum is for. Do not assign them a role. They must assign their own role. They will anyway. If you're at the point of moving beyond the two extremes, then the person that hurts you will be the predator. 5. What was done to you doesn't have to define you. Next is the professional victim. In truth, it's just their version of the predator. We lack knowledge of intent behind the actions. They have that. Let God judge if your predator is really a professional victim. You only need to move beyond the two labels. You can only change yourself. Then there is the broken soul. This can be where you stay or progress further. A broken soul still believes the same rules as the other two. They can harm people as well, but it's not for selfish reasons. They believe themselves valueless. What they do is seen as survival. They should be punished. They should be damaged. They have no right to live. Those are how they will hurt you. This is the first step of a survivor. How far you get will depend on your ability to adapt, unlearn the rules imposed on you, and create coping behavior you replace for those rules, or at least allow you to fight until you can create the rules that will help you move further. The next level of survivor I call the strong soul. They can also hurt people, but unlike the other three, it's because they are focused on saving everyone else. The person they will hurt is someone that loves them, attempts to place them at the same level as themselves. They will attempt to fix the problem, will genuinely feel remorse. You might think they are not placing your needs at the same level as theirs. This is not true. Sadly, it's the reverse. Your needs are at the same level as theirs. That's the problem. They are battling the same fight of the broken soul, but they reject the trauma-induced words of their predator. 6. History repeats. A badly worded saying. Repeat implies exactly, and we all can see the saying people do not come back to life. It's human behavior patterns that repeat. I suggest the pattern is based on the lessons we are to learn on Earth. Humility. At times when survival is in doubt, we tend to have more empathy for those around us. Yet we have this human behavior that is deeply embedded in the mind, imposed by society through adults to children. You might not understand why you do something, but it's almost like a trigger. The mind responds to something you're doing. If you pay attention, you'd see when this happens. Sadly, humility can only be taught from consequences. Adults tell you many things. If they don't act, the way they speak, then you might not learn the lesson they attempted to teach. Worse, as I mentioned above, sometimes the mind gets a trigger to respond automatically. The child could get signals that is confusing, creating frustration. You control your destiny. Even if an adult failed you, can unlearn and adapt. Possibly remove a rule within your family, or damage future generations with rules you put in place that your parents never taught you. We do have a role to play here. We are not just a bystander. When humility is highest is when we start the slide. Parents, having suffered so hard, will want their child to have what they did not. They will talk much and rescue too often and create arrogance. Free will unrestrained leads to arrogance. It must. You can have whatever you want. That is arrogant. With humility, you see the pain in others and remember it when you felt the same way. It stops you from doing things just because you can. Doesn't mean you can't override that rule. It just tells you you're going to hurt someone. It's when peace and abundance is all around that we slide back. We have no reason to deny ourselves anything. Rules in place during times of humility will be confining, old, obsolete. Some will argue that was then, forgetting the reason the problem isn't happening anymore is because the rule was working. Arrogance is the threat, and only allowing humility to be learned will you protect and not damage the future. Sadly, what the first generation with humility started will come into play. Now it will be seen as lacking compassion to allow a loved one to feel consequences. People assume consequences equal punishment. Society punishes. But if you choose, you can learn a lesson that teaches humility. You have free will and creativity. You can tame free will with creativity, changing punishment into learning. Only the soul in unity can do that. It has always been the source of free will and creativity. Those are just words. Soul is being hidden by those words. It is the spark placed in us by God. The spark that has always been God's way of communicating to us. We just choose to blame others and split creativity into a positive, but free will as conditional upon what you want and what you don't. Therefore, consequences equal punishment. Long ago, an act of God, natural disaster, caused many in fear and trauma to seek out their leaders and ask, why would God let this happen? Leaders took a shortcut, implied God was punishing us for using free will. We sinned. A simple answer that haunts us still. See, trauma makes those words much more impactful. And we do see natural disasters, even in our own lifetime. This is the source of evil on earth. An illusion imposed through generation after generation, down to us. Words are spoken that offer clues, yet when you ask the question, why? It's frustrating. How do you explain something you have no idea? The mind just repeated what it was told until someone seeks out the answer. Using creativity, no one will be able to answer the questions. In arrogance, we threw it out, thinking what was known was no longer needed. Until it comes back and we must rediscover it. This happens over and over. Smaller cycles into bigger ones. Layers upon layers. Lessons learned. Discarded. But the crumbs are around us. The learned behavior is still in place, even if the morals are lost. The truth can be found only with creativity, and in others we label it free will. Society is meant to destroy free will. It was created by one mind that has a rule that shackled its soul so severely it felt it must do what never should have been done. We suffer from that mistake still. 7. You can't control everything. Can it be fixed? Society can impose a rule. It's not capable of doing everything. Free will is creativity. It is fundamental to soul, and God is the source of that spark. We've been told God was the first predator that punished us for having a soul. There is a dim hope, but not in our lifetime. We can only start the journey. Pray we unlearn the lessons imposed on us, pass the knowledge faithfully, allow our children to feel consequences before it's too late. I call this the Trinity knot, and I think the Trinity is the clue. 3, and 1 is always silent. Soul is truth. The other 2 are the illusion that hides soul, hides truth as well. As it's been said, God was withdrawn from us. It's assumed that was the punishment. We misunderstand. We've been punishing ourselves. One mind set the rule, but we can change it at any time. Within ourselves, getting it through society is a bit more difficult. All we must do is stop living in the past. God isn't hiding. He's where he always was. We needed an excuse. Embraced blaming others instead of learning lessons. We never look within for the answers and feel frustration because blaming others will never make life better. It just hides the problem. All it does is keep you in chaos, feeling victimized, even if you're doing more damage than anyone around you. 8. You can't fix everybody. A warning. And maybe some hopeful news. You will not know how far along the path you crossed into the strong soul territory. It's a gradual slide, and you can stumble until you've successfully created coping behavior. This can only be done with proactive boundaries and clear knowledge that your needs must not be violated. You have the instinct to fix others, and it can make you violate your fundamental needs. A person you love could drag you back into the broken soul territory because they won't communicate the problem and will tell you they want to fix it without actually changing anything. They just want to add what you have. They have no intentions of getting rid of what's hurting them. This time, it's harder to come back. You've lost your self-esteem. You're doubting yourself. You know you did this once, but you fell. The need to return means you must start again. This time with the knowledge you did this to yourself. However, the good news. I don't believe you will ever go all the way back. You are safely in the high level of broken survivor. You have the rules in place, you just must strengthen them again. It's not much comfort, but maybe it will allow you to strengthen yourself to push forward, knowing you will not fall further back. You know you can make it back. The fear is that you fell back into old patterns, knowing there is a limit to how far you fall. It will help you beat the fear that you can fall further. I place at the end a balanced soul. This is only to show the strong soul is just a mark on the rule. The further into the strong soul area you progress, the more your life is in control. But you will always hurt others. It's impossible to avoid that. We are human. Anyone that claims they are a balanced soul is deep in self-deception. I'd remind anyone that would claim balanced soul of the phrase, It's a sign you're crazy if you think you're the only sane one in the room. I'd suggest a balanced soul would not be contained on Earth. And it's only the next rung to something beyond the material world. Something we just don't know about. So we don't know where it goes from there. It's something to strive for. But you will not know if you've reached it until the end. The Creator will not be waiting at the finish line with a cookie and a pat on the back. Own your future. You know the intent of your actions. They will have to be enough. If it's not, I can assure you, as a person with creativity, anyone that creates something would never disown what they created. They feel the pain, even if what they created is not valued by those it's entrusted to. If I can feel that way about what I create, I doubt that our Creator would feel less towards us. He would never throw us away, even if sometimes adults would a child.